So good morning. I'm expecting a few people more to come in as we come, but I would love for us to move with some speed for we can get to our wonderful lunch. The lunch today is a lunch from South Portland. It'll be a hot Italian meal, and I hope that you all will stick around. If you weren't in service, I did want to remind you that what we handed out today is what we'll need for this meeting. It includes our agenda, the table of contents, last year's annual meeting notes, as well as the reports from our treasurer, our junior warden, our senior warden, and me. Many other people wrote reports, and they are compiled together. We actually made 10 hard copies of all of the reports, and then they're also going to be shared electronically. The reason being is not that they're not important, but because we would love to save some paper. If you need a hard copy, they're in the parish office on the table in the middle, and also you'll see them circulated electronically along with a recording of this meeting. The chance for us to be together every year is absolutely delightful. I am thankful for the opportunity for us to talk about the year past and the year coming up. Both of them have a lot to commend. For us at the Cathedral of St. Luke, we have been in transition now for 3 years. When you read my report, you'll notice that I used an exclamation point that said, "This is my third exclamation point annual report." It never occurred to me that I would write 3 annual reports for you all. But I also remember in one of the earliest meetings I had with you all, that there was a conversation about the longest interim I had ever had. Do you remember that? It was at a church in Beverly Farms, Massachusetts, where I served for 4 years. I am glad that you all will not take their record, but I'm also thrilled about the progress that we've made. As we begin today, our first thing are a couple of business items that include an opening prayer. You notice today that I didn't talk a whole lot during the service about our work with our marginalized communities, the folks that take advantage of our Tuesdays and Thursdays, our Tuesdays and Thursdays food pantries. They are on my mind, and I will be talking about them briefly in my report today. But I'd love to open us up with prayer. So the Lord be with you. Dear God, we give you thanks for the way in which you move and inspire us, that your Holy Spirit can even be present in annual meetings. We ask you to give us a sense of your presence, give us a sense of your peace, give us a sense of your purpose. Be with the members of this community who are not here for reasons of distance or illness, that they may also be inspired by the work you call us to do in this place. We ask all this in your Son, Jesus Christ's name. Amen. You'll notice we have a territorial acknowledgement. It's in our bulletin every week, but it seems important on this annual meeting for us to remember and remind ourselves of the land that we stand on. St. Luke's acknowledges that we are worshiping on, quote, unceded territory taken by force and previously occupied by the Wabanaki people. Some of the resources that built this cathedral came from industry related to slave trade in the 18th and 19th centuries. We join our fellow residents in honoring the Wabanaki knowledge and culture that continues to thrive in the tribal nations. We ask for a blessing and peace upon all indigenous peoples that have called and will always call this place the Dawn Land, home. The next piece of work that we're called to do is approval of the 2025 minutes, which are found on the second and third pages of your group. I hear a motion that these minutes from last year's annual meeting dated February 23rd, 2023 be approved. I hear a second. Is there any discussion or amendments? All in favor? Well done. We're making good progress already. The next thing that is important for us to do as a body is to do the work of elections. The nominating committee this year is very proud to present the nominees that we have included in this year's packet. Nominees for lesser chapter include Meredith Koff, who's not here because she has the flu. Prayers to you, Meredith. Joe DeKay. Is Joe here? Joe's over here. Joe, would you stand? Randy Hogan, who's here. And Jared McCaw, who's here. For nominees to serve as delegates to the Diocesan Convention, we have Sam Allen. Sam's back there. We have Sarah Brake. Here's Sarah. Petra Carlson. Fred Fowler. And Susan McCullough. She's back there. These are the folks who were nominated and consented to be on considered to be voted on and considered by this body. Are there any other nominations for any of these positions? Okay. I'd entertain a motion to accept the nominees for lesser chapter and for representative to diocesan council. Is there a second? All in favor? So now now that the voting has been, the ballots have been kind of finalized, you may vote and you can return your votes to our senior warden. When you're done, you can just hold them up or pass them in, and our senior warden will collect them. You. Okay, some more here. Thank you. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Gail. You guys are smart over here by the heat. Great. So one of the things that's interesting about this year's voting is that for the first time in 3 years, we didn't have contested elections. Did you all notice that this year? What I want to make sure that you hear from me is that this is simply not a change of policy. Our policy here, at least since I've been here, is that folks who are duly nominated and accept nomination are placed onto the ballot. There's not a kind of a narrowing of the funnel, right, before the ballots are produced. That may have been the case in previous years, but for us it's not. And this year, actually, we received the numbers of nominees for the positions that needed to be filled. And what I'll say about that has something to do with the ways in which so many people are involved in active ministry in other places in the church, not about a lack of interest or energy around the work that the lesser chapter or representatives of diocesan council provide. I know that because I've heard from you about how you feel called to the ministries that you are actively serving. And I also know that a huge portion of our parish-wide energy is being used to call and search for our new dean. And so some of our leaders who otherwise would have served in some of these positions or would have stood for election are serving on other committees, and especially the search committee. I expect next year for there to return back to kind of more, I use the word kind of contested elections, and that's my expectation. Throughout the year, when there are openings, you'll notice that we fill them as part of the lesser chapter. The lesser chapter serves as the governing body outside of our annual meeting, and we have the ability to make appointments. Did you notice that we didn't have anyone stand for junior warden? We're going to talk about that during my annual report, but it goes to say that the folks who have served recently as junior wardens, Jamie Koff, Fred Fowler, Sam Allen, and many, many others who have served dutifully, have recognized that as it currently sits, that position is almost impossible to do. It is a full-time position. And so you'll notice that as part of Randy's budget presentation, that we've included some funding for some of the work that has traditionally been done by the junior warden to be handled by a staff person, so that we can actually find a junior warden who can enjoy their job. And so we're going to wait until that position is filled, and then we'll continue to call a new junior warden, and we'll let you obviously know about that. What's nice about that is that we have a robust group of volunteers, and Jamie Koff, even though he's departing as junior warden, has offered to kind of help finish off a number of these projects that we've been working on. Fred Fowler, Sam Allen, many of you have taken parts and parcel of taking care of this huge physical plant and are going to be sustaining it during this time. So it is to say that it is with intentionality and recognition of what that position has kind of become in this place that we've chosen to leave it open. Make sense? Great. I'd now like to turn it over to our senior warden, John Hennessy, for his annual report.
Hello, everybody. We're going to start off in an unconventional way. Can you imagine that? So I was going to continue George's theme of standing and sitting through the service. And we'll see if this works. If you don't want to stand, just raise your hand. So I'm going to start with members of the current lesser chapter. Stand or raise your hand if you're on the lesser chapter. Now I'm going to make it a little bit more complicated. If you have ever served on the lesser chapter during your time at St. Luke's, stand or raise your hand. Okay, we're getting into this. If you've ever served on the finance committee, stand or raise your hand. If you've ever served on the endowment committee, stand or raise your hand. If you are currently serving on the search committee, stand or raise your hand. If you've ever served on a search committee, stand or raise your hand. You see where I'm going with this? Yes. How about St. Elizabeth's or the food pantry? Any volunteers in the room? How about Walking Together or the Public Policy Environmental Action Team? How about if you've served on the hospitality or mission committee? Any lectors in the room? Any prayer leaders and Eucharistic ministers? Stand or raise your hand. Altar Guild, Flower Guild, ushers, vergers, acolytes. All right, I'm getting there. Choir members. Building and grounds. St. Luke's staff. I saw all the under 16 people left because it was so freaking cold in here this morning. But I was going to ask them to stand too. How about the, I'm sorry? I'm getting there. How about the Kneeler Guild? How about if you've been to the 7:30 service or the 5:15 service or the 12:10 service on Tuesday? Stand or raise your hand. How many delegates to convention are in the room? How many, of course I can't see, but how many people are watching online? Raise your hand. Wave to the camera, to the people online. And last but certainly not least, and I'm sure I forgot somebody, but our AV tech people who I always take for granted until it doesn't work. Thank you very much. If you can hear my voice, well, we're not done yet. If you can hear my voice, stand or raise your hand. I have made my point. You can sit down now. The task of appointing the search committee involved what I just did. Abby and I sat down and we tried to identify every single ministry in this church, and we put columns together. And every person had a unique color. And by the time we were done, I think there were 18 columns. I don't remember how many names, and more importantly, didn't remember how many names were repeated, because that's who we are. I want to I'm not going to, you can read the report that I submitted online or on the hard copy. I'm not going to read that here. I just want to talk about best intentions for a second. We have a lot of exciting work ahead of us, and every single person who stood or raised their hand, I want you to assume, whether you're involved in that ministry or not, that they are operating under the very, very best of intentions. They may do things differently than you would have liked, but they're operating under the best of intentions. I want to remind us, too, as we get to I don't know if I'd call it a crescendo, Ruth, or that the deadline for submission of applications was 12 o'clock last night. I just want to emphasize the importance of communication. The process gets very, very intense right now. And communication happens when you're talking to the people who are responsible for the issue. If you have something that you have a problem with or a concern with about me, please talk to me. It doesn't help if you talk to somebody else who then talks to somebody else and then talks to me. That's not how it works efficiently. Let's remember, as the tensions rise and the excitement builds, communication is a two-way street. We don't need to triangulate and build a whole network of pss, 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 pss. Dan, are you raising your hand? Okay. I didn't quite hear him, Dan. What did you say, Dan? Oh, he was saluting. Thank you. I'm closing with this. I'm asking you to reimagine the Church of St. Luke going forward. The church is not the church that it was 20 years ago. It's not the church it was 10 years ago. It's not the church it was last year. The world is changing, and we have to reimagine how we are going to be the church that, that you told us you want to be, and that our community needs us to be. These are incredibly challenging times, and I don't think it's going to get easier anytime soon. But we have the control of what happens inside this space. And to build on what George said about Jamie, we have control on how we take care of this space. And that's up to each one of us, every one of us who stood or raised our hand. Thank you.
I'd like to turn it over to Jamie Koff, our junior warden. I commend his report to you. It tells you just how profound the work is doing.
Thanks. And I've actually enjoyed the work, even though it's been a lot, and it's been a challenge to even come close to what Fred and Sam and others before me have done. But the bottom line is we couldn't maintain this huge facility without so many volunteers, inside, outside. So it's a real team effort. And as George said, I'll still be part of the team, but just in a different role. So I guess things that are done. Well, in 2025, we were really under a scarcity budget. We cut our expenses down by about 25–30%, but we were able to hold that, heating aside. So, but I think one of the accomplishments that we did have, we had a couple of collaborative efforts on buildings and grounds. We initiated a parking contract with a local vendor, and I think it's worked out pretty well, but we had a lot of interaction for several months before we put it into play, and it has paid off both in exceeded our revenue expectations as well as cut our costs significantly for maintaining the lot with plowing, et cetera. Some other big things, we've worked on the roof. Fred has done a lot of work up there keeping some of the leaks at bay, but on the left undone side of the ledger, we've got a lot of security issues here, and I think that's kind of one of the areas that I'll be focusing on this year, kind of bringing more effort to bear on that. We've got the tower that still remains undone, and one thing that I'm really excited about is we had a first of many meetings was about updating our spaces to reflect kind of where we want to go. And we had a meeting in November. We'll have some more this spring. But again, it'll be a community collaborative effort. So anyways, so I want to thank you very much. I've enjoyed it and look forward to helping out in so many other ways. I love this place. So.
Thank you, Jamie. I'd love to turn it over now to our treasurer, Randy Hogan.
Did you turn it off? Did you turn it? No. Good morning.
Good morning. Afternoon.
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 So, treasurer's report. I know from my own experience, there might be a few of you who this part comes up in annual meeting, you're like, I don't know, are we doing okay? And then there are others of you who are on this side who know within the penny how much has changed, and you memorize the account item numbers. So there are a whole bunch of you kind of in the middle there. And what I want to encourage you is if you do have questions, please come to me and ask. I'm going to be going over what happened in 2025, and then we'll go into what's happening for 2026. I'm referring to the page in this abridged report, page 16. So as we've already noted, we started 2025 with what we were calling a scarcity budget. We were really cutting costs very closely, especially when it came to buildings and grounds. And Jamie and the whole team did a remarkable job keeping those costs close. But you also showed up as parishioners, both with your bodies and your money to support what was happening at the cathedral in 2025. At the end of the year, our total operating income was just shy of $800,000, which was over the approved budget by more than $33,000. And our operating expenses were $766,000, which was under our budget by 27.5. In 2025, we also did some new things. We didn't just cut costs, we added some support. We supported financially the growing 515 worship service. We supported a bit more on our outreach contributions. And we, through careful management, through managing transitions, staffing transitions in the year, and through finding new creative ways to raise money, notably through the parking lot rentals, we were able to have this successful year end. Our total assets at the end of the year were just shy of $4.8 million, which includes significantly the endowment funds at just shy of $4.2 million. We also managed about $405,000 in church-designated and donor-designated restricted funds. So we have a number of different funds that we support different ministries and purposes. That's what that represents. And at the end of the year, we were just under $200,000 in cash to support our operating fund. This year, in August, I also just want to recognize the members of the Lesser Chapter who were actively involved every month at our meetings, discussing the budget, the statements in front of us, and how to manage going forward. That put us in a position to really work on a wonderful budget for 2026. But in August, I put together, this might be more for the people on this side who are like, I don't know what's happening with the budget, just tell me, are we doing good? To, I don't really, reading numbers on a statement is not my thing. I put together this document, How to Read St. Luke's Financial Statements. And it is available in the office. I'll make sure it's available in the office. I'll just highlight it, that there are a few pieces in this. First is the budget, which is our financial plan for ministry. It's how we plan for the year. And it's the document that you want to look at and say, does our budget reflect our stated ministry priorities? Are we being realistic about both income and expenses based on our past patterns? Or, in the case of 26, sort of looking forward, what we hope for in the future and what we anticipate together. We have also something called the Statement of Activities, which is what came in and went out in the past month. And this is a document in which you want to know, how are we doing on that? What's different, what's changed? The Statement of Financial Position is, what do we have right now? What's our cash? What's our adequate reserves? Are we covered for any unexpected expenses? Are our restricted funds being used appropriately for their intended purposes? And then we have a restricted funds activity report. So new this year in the financial statements, which by the way are available through a link in every single newsletter that comes out weekly. There's a link to the Lesser Chapter minutes. When you click that link, you'll get access to all the financial statements. And I'll point to the page in here. This is new this year. It looks like this. I don't have a page number on it.
It's the second to last page.
Second to last page. It looks like this. It's very small type. This is a list of all the different designated and restricted funds. So you'll see familiar funds like Food Pantry, Haiti Outreach, Luke's Garden, and St. Elizabeth's, and so forth. So these statements are also available in the walkway there, in the bins. You should be able to see them in physical form as well, but always weekly you can click through that link. Excuse me a sec. So behind the scenes, sort of other things that we did this past year was we changed our banking relationship to a new bank, and we added a new level of fraud protection, which is really important for our security. So we talk about physical security, we're also improving financial security. I mentioned how the lesser chapter is pretty involved along with the Financial Advisory Committee, pretty involved in our financial review. And, I take those of you online who weren't able to join us, or if you just joined us for the annual meeting, you weren't at church today. I really appreciate what George said in his sermon that I thought about, transforming the mundane into blessings. We have an asphalt lot out there, pretty mundane, boring piece of land that we've transformed into a blessing of assets and resources to allow us to do ministry. It's raising money for us. Each of you are taking the mundane, what you earn in your stock portfolio or when you go to work and you get your paycheck, and you're pouring it into the church to allow us to transform it into a blessing. The back doors of the church here, we open those up. Doors by themselves are pretty mundane, but they turn into a blessing. And so I want us to encourage us to look at the 2026 in that same way. I know the lesser chapter and the Financial Advisory Committee looked at the 2026 budget in that same way. And so in this document here, you'll see 2 pages with a pie chart. When you look at it online, it's probably going to be in color, so you can see the pie chart a little bit better. But this is what we are looking at for 2026. There was a whole 2026 budget presentation that was done online. There's a recording available for you. That's also probably linked in our newsletter. And I go more deeply into the 2026 budget in that and answered some questions and presented additional information. But this budget is based on what our community, has said what we want. What we want of the cathedral, what we want to do with the assets available to us to transform into ministry in the world. And so when we looked at it, we said, you know what? We are a cathedral that has expenses of just under $1 million. Let's claim that and make that begin in 2026 in this transition year. It includes new staff positions, which will be filled when we have a new dean, a second clergy person, and a new staff member dedicated to faith formation. It will include property management services. It will include additional support for outreach. It will include a contribution to building reserves fund from the operating budget so that we can know that we're building up that fund to be able to care for these facilities, this worship space, and all the spaces where we welcome people to come. And then we looked at total income. You had stepped up generously this year with pledges. So many of you have increased your pledge from last year. Thank you. So many of you have started pledging this year. And that's such a great, it's so wonderful to feel like we're part of a vibrant community where new people are coming in and saying, yes, I want to be part of this as well. And more people are giving this year. And so that's made this very possible. And since we passed this budget, the lesser chapter approved this budget, we've received even more pledges. And so in the bottom line here says, okay, we're net negative $201,000. That sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. And yet, we've received new pledges and new financial support contributions over and above pledges from the people sitting with you in these pews, and those of you online who are joining us, you are supporting this even more. We also have 2 dedicated funds in that list that you saw for the purposes of what we're doing in 2026, this year, right? It's February 1st. So we have a pastoral salaries fund. We're going to dip into that to help support the hiring of a second clergy person. We have a transition support fund, which we're going to draw on to be able to provide support during this transition year. We have these additional funds available that people have contributed. And then we have the possibility and likelihood that we will be drawing 1% more from our endowment. Together, those four sources, currently we're at $172,000 towards a $200,000 deficit. And there is more to come because we've heard other indications from folks in this community who want to support this transition year. So I think that's very good news. And think about what's possible for us in this new year. I believe that this budget, just again from the scripture this morning, is a budget that's allowing us to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with God. It's our currency of love. And I really appreciate everything all of you are doing to contribute to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Would y'all stand up? It's freezing. I want you to stand up. And also, I have to completely rewrite my address because it began with that piece from Micah, so I'm devastated. I'm devastated. No, please sit down now. No, I just wanted you all to shake a leg. Thank you all so much for coming today to this annual report. Did you all know? Yeah, yes. We're going to do that at the upper hall when we're gathered together in the upper hall, not like in this thing for just recording sake. Just for recording sake. Do you have some questions right now? Go ahead. You can stand up. Mm-hmm. Oh, let me grab your mic so that you can be recorded. You want to grab a mic? Sure. Thank you.
That I'm under the assumption right now that this is the budget that's been passed.
That's right. It has.
By the lesser chapter.
That's right.
Which is a $212,000 deficit. Now, I'm speaking this from the perspective that over the last 50 years, I have either prepared or had oversight of.
So you're critiquing the budget? Is that what's happening right now?
That is correct.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
That I have oversight or prepared budgets for things as diverse as municipalities, school districts, churches, nonprofits, universities, and with my profession for businesses. And this is the first time that I have ever seen a budget prepared on the basis of aspirations rather than the basis of reasonable expectations of what expenses are going to be, and also reasonable expectations of any other income, i.e. Expectations of a 1% draw. So I think my concern is that we need to prepare a budget on the basis of realistic expectations, i.e. we're not going to, new dean isn't going to be here until probably fall. There is no way he or she is going to consider additional personnel, deans, or anything else. So that revenue, those expenses, do not pass the straight face test. They're not going to be there. So I think my request would be for the lesser chapter to take another look and prepare a budget based on what really is going to happen. Every business and every organization, because this is our guiding document, and to prepare monthly financial statements against a budget that is totally unrealistic is not going to do a reasonable presentation. And I respect the work that the lesser chapter has done. I respect the work of the Finance Committee. but I'm just very, very uncomfortable with the nature of the budget, and I apologize.
Nope, no need to apologize. All of this stuff is, we've talked about this, and Peter's raising a question that was raised at our at the financial budget presentation, which is about the lesser chapter's work of creating a budget that is the full year budget, recognizing that many of these positions that we've included in the budget are not going to be filled, right? And so in reality, this is a choice that we made, and the reason why we made that choice was because we want to present to you all the actual cost of what the running of the cathedral is. We don't know when the next dean is coming. We don't know when they're going to fill the positions, and so the exercise of trying to game out the system felt less important than you all understanding that, yes, this budget is probably going to look like we're way in the black for most entirely the whole year. But the reason is that it prepares us for the long-term understanding of what it costs to run this place. And so, yes, there will be some math, and there may be in our monthly reports, some explanation as to kind of why we're in the current financial situation. I imagine there will need to be. But ultimately, our budget, as Randy said, is a statement of the conversations that we've been having over the last few years about who we are and what we imagine ourselves to be. And so that it includes new staff, that it includes initiatives that you all are supporting, and outreach and work in our community means that it needs to be in our budget. Yes, the funding sources, as Randy pointed out, exist in our funds, in people's generosity, in all of the ways that she's described. Please have a conversation with me, with Randy, with John, and engage with those financial documents. But thank you, Peter, for raising the question. It is important to recognize that many of these positions that we're calling for in this year's budget will not be filled until the fall, and so the budget is probably is going to take some close reading through the year to recognize kind of where we actually are financially. But thank you. Okay, I'd love to turn now to the dean's report. And do you all know anything about Prophet Micah? Prophet Micah was writing about 700 years before Jesus' time and was writing to a group of people who were in transition. Isn't that convenient? Their challenges were about the devastation that was coming to Jerusalem. That's not our challenge. But there was all of these questions, and thank you for reading it this morning. What you realize in the reading of Micah is that he's crying out, like, what should I do? Should I make a sacrifice? Should I give extra money? I mean, it actually says that. The answer is yes, you should give extra money. But what it says is there's this really intriguing part where the Lord speaks to Micah and invites a different way of understanding their relationship with God and community, okay? And it's the same one that I'm holding before you again today. And Randy stole my thunder, but I'm going to do it. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? What does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with our God? It's an incredible kind of guiding point for all of our shared life together, isn't it? I mentioned that one of the things when I look at an annual report, I've been thinking about how to include what's happened in the very first month of this new year that didn't happen in 2025, but all of us have been profoundly affected by the ways in which so many of our neighbors' lives have been upended by the immigration and customs enforcement activity here in Maine. I have been amazed at your generosity. It has been incredibly complex. I think I told you 2 weeks ago, we had this experience where St. E's usually gets between 350 and 400 visitors on a Tuesday morning. 2 weeks ago, they had 150. Last week, they had 70, okay? The food pantry has experienced a similar kind of changing of people who are participating. So there's this question, right, around how we, as doers of justice, that's what we're called to do, are stepping in alongside of the most vulnerable among us, right? And you all have responded incredibly generously, and I can't thank you enough. What you'll notice is that there are more people volunteering. We've partnered with neighbors. Instead of individuals coming to the food pantry, we have other people, volunteers who are buddies, coming to the food pantry to pick up their food on their behalf. We are working with community organizations to make food and essentials from St. E's and the food pantry delivered to folks who are uncomfortable leaving the home. And what we're learning, at least what we've learned in the last week, is that one of our bigger challenges is yet to come, and that is repairing some of the financial damage that our neighbors have experienced over the last month. We're hearing that for folks who stayed home from work and stayed home from some of the other ways in which they earn money in the last month, that keeping up with rent and bills is an ongoing challenge. You'll notice that on Tuesday, there'll be a letter from the bishop about a diocesan-wide initiative to help bridge the gap for some of our neighbors and keep them in their homes, so that if in fact ICE is actually gone, that we can return back without being behind the 8 ball. Is that okay with you all? So that's the plan, is that we are going to continue to kind of serve our neighbors at St. E's and our food pantry, and you may see an invitation to participate in raising some money, and we will find the partners in our community to administer those funds. That's going to be happening early this week. One of the biggest challenges we have right now is just how quickly all of this is changing. And so I really appreciate your willingness to sit in the discomfort. It is hard, and yet it is holy and sacred work. And we are called to it, again, by Micah. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? Here at the Cathedral, in addition to this thing that's happened to us in the last month, over the last year, we've worked really hard to recognize our beloved community. I think about the transition of walking together from a body that functioned here at the Cathedral to one that was lifted up at our diocesan convention and is now a diocesan-wide program. Did you know about that? This is work that was born out of a year ago and is now coming to fruition to kind of partner with other organizations and to change the relationship of the diocese with these vulnerable communities. I think about that huge turnout we had in June at the Pride Parade, right? Think about how we can show up for each other. I think about the advocacy that PPEAT is doing. That we're working in partnership with other organizations. I am aware that part of justice is understanding, and so there's some education that's happening. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? One big initiative that we've heard from you over the last few years is that there is a need here for us to understand hospitality. Some of that has to do with how we welcome neighbors here. We get visitors here most every week, and so I'm incredibly grateful that Susan Lyons and Michael Thorns have taken on this work of becoming docents of the physical space. If you haven't had a chance to take one of their tours of our cathedral, you should do it. We have a lovely place, and there are now a body of volunteers who are welcoming visitors at diocesan events, when the cruise ships pull into town, when in fact people have questions that we can sign them up to learn about our sacred space that we share. How's that for hospitality? There's also a need for us to be hospitable to each other. We're still practicing it, aren't we? We went through 2 years ago a really important project of of what we called conflict transformation, where we learned to identify how this place had learned to function for a few years, and so that we took on this work of conflict transformation so that we could trust each other, that we could communicate clearly, that we could listen to each other, that we would be able to kind of put our needs behind the needs of the wider body. That work is ongoing. We occasionally see flare-ups, right? But generally, we've all covenanted together to live in a different way, and I can tell you, it's changed us. I was thinking about the lesser chapter meeting that I had last week, that we had last week, that I was so excited to go to, as opposed to the ones that when I started with, that I had a pit in my stomach. I didn't know what I was doing then. But now I know that God's love permeates this place, and there's no need to fear speaking about this place that we care so much about. We are hospitality to each other. Under the leadership of Meredith Koff and a really powerful group of lay people, the work of hospitality has been made a standing committee here, and that it's not just about the incredible meals that we have with regularity, including this Thursday. It's about how we relate to each other. And so Meredith, as a newly elected member of your lesser chapter, has agreed to chair that committee and continue that work moving forward. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God? We worship together in profound ways. I'm incredibly thrilled to have colleagues. Christian Clough is a dynamic musician who has been really helpful this year in bringing forth new forms of music. The place looks different. People are excited. We're singing new songs. It is a reflection of what a cathedral should be. Our worship is reflective in its music at the 10 o'clock of what our bishop's vision is of how we will worship together. But it's not just a 10 o'clock service. The 7:30 service is a very special, smaller service. And then, of course, there's the enormous growth and leadership of the 5:15 service. If you haven't been, please come. It's mostly led by lay people, and it provides an opportunity for you all to hear each other, offering reflections. The music is different, the space is intimate, and it is only about 50 minutes long. I love the service, partially because it allows me to sit and worship as opposed to lead. We have a Tuesday Eucharist, which is even more intimate. I hope that you all recognize that this place is doing what a cathedral should do, and that in its various forms of worship, it reflects the various people who come into this space. It is doing its good work. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God? Well, I imagine that we're doing it in hospitality, in worship, in justice work. All of these things are moving us to becoming beloved community together. The work ahead is going to be challenging. As you heard, the names of people submitting their names for nominations closed yesterday, or 12 o'clock last night. As I heard last week, we had a few dozen great candidates. What's going to happen is next Sunday, the search committee is going to do a presentation for you all about the work they've done so far to bring you up to speed about their processes and their thinking, about how they're preparing to move forward. And then we're going to be invited into a very different way of being in support of that committee, because they're going to need to kind of pull in, because we're talking about real people. People who serve in other churches, and they may not be sharing as much information besides the fact that they're going to be doing interviews. They're not going to be sharing names. They're not going to be doing those things. And so our work then is going to be in supporting them in prayer and trusting the Holy Spirit. And so that's going to be happening. So I invite you to come next Sunday to hear about their work, and then to really offer yourselves in prayer in support of this body, which is going to call your next dean. Your next dean will arrive sometime in the spring or summer, depends on where they're coming from and who they are, at which point we'll really need to trust each other again, because learning new relationships, man, that can be hard. So we're going to need to trust each other, and I believe we are prepared to do that. There will be ongoing challenges. I mean, the financial situation we're in is a real challenge. The capital needs of this place are a real challenge, but we as a body are looking forward to a great future together, and I am thrilled of where we are. I said I didn't expect to be here after 3 years, right? But I am so thrilled that we can turn over the keys to someone with a body that is transformed, a physical structure that understands its needs, and an understanding of how to be in relationship with each other and the city of Portland. And I think we have a lot to commend about ourselves. Yes, there are challenges, but I invite you all to recognize that within those challenges, God's Holy Spirit comes, and we have been given all the tools we need in order to face the days ahead. I'm grateful. I truly am. I think this is a sacred and wonderful place, Spirit-led, with very great leadership. We're going to be thanking some of the leaders at our luncheon in just a minute, but I just publicly want to say thank you to each of you all who have given yourselves so generously to this place. Thank you. As I mentioned, there will be an opportunity for people to kind of raise a toast in the upper hall over lunch about their ministries, about Thanksgivings that they want to share, and we're going to be doing that. If you have questions for me or for Jamie or for John, for Randy, please find us either now or at some other time. All of the reports are going to be available online, and I hope that you will read them. People worked very hard on them, and so we want to share those. I'd entertain a motion to end the meeting, and then I'll close us in prayer. Is there a second? Let's start the discussion about that. How about that? All in favor? Let us pray. I'm going to say our blessing over our food so we can get right to eating. Dear God, we give you thanks for the opportunity to be together in this place. We ask you to continue this fellowship and learning over our meal. Bless this food to our bodies and our bodies to your service. We ask all this in your Son, Jesus Christ's name. Amen. Thanks, everybody.